So it seems that, you know, a lot of people are still talking about it. And I did I believe, let me see, did I do one on it? Yeah. About 6 days ago, or actually a week ago today, I did a video where I talked about the news that pretty much broke in the eyes of a lot of folks, and that is the fact that Triple H was getting 99.9% control creatively over what we see in WWE on Raw and SmackDown and the PLE/pay-per-views. Same with NXT to an extent, but that's mostly Shawn Michaels, HBK. Now, more information had come out throughout the week, of course. And it's information that some people, were smiling about, were happy to hear. Most importantly, the fact that Ari Emmanuel, the guy that now owns WWE, the guy that owns 51% of WWE, is the one that made the call for Triple H to be head of creative, be the guy that's the be-all, end-all, if you will, when it comes to creative, and not Vince McMahon. It's and A lot of people have heard this, and still there are some that are skeptical. I mean, you listen to what JD from NY206 says on Off the Script. You hear what Solomon has said in his podcast this past Sunday. You could listen to a bit of that here on YouTube on his YouTube channel. And others have said pretty much similar stuff, that even though this sounds like it's good news, they're not, celebrating completely just yet. That even though the product is reflecting what's being reported on television, from what we see on Raw, from what we saw on SmackDown, and so on, they're not celebrating just yet. They're not truly celebrating just yet, because the original report came out and said that Triple H had 99.9%. Now, as more information has come out, it sounds like Triple H basically has the full 100%. But why aren't people celebrating, if you will, at this announcement? Because of what happened towards the end of last year and going into the early portion in spring of this year, and mostly what happened on the Raw after WrestleMania. Those are examples. Towards the end of last year, early portion of this year, and the Raw after Mania, and throughout the past several months afterwards, are prime examples, if you will, of Vince McMahon still, having control, sneaking in and getting creative control, or at least having a say in what happens, especially when it comes to certain things that may or may not make sense. So, even though this sounds like it's good news, where basically it's all Triple H, no Vince, they don't want to celebrate just yet. And I think the reason they don't want to celebrate just yet is they want to make sure it is full on confirmed. Full on confirmed. No, no catches, no what ifs or anything like that. They want to make sure that it's full on confirmed that Vince McMahon is not going to touch creative ever again. And one of the most confirmation ways they want this to happen is to have Vince McMahon pretty much ousted out of TKO, ousted out of WWE, ousted out of Endeavor. They want him gone. Only then would they truly feel that things can be basically enjoyable more so than what they are right now. Even though the fact that Ari Emmanuel has come out in recent interviews, and, on television, on various streaming platforms, radio, whatever, podcasts, even though he's come out and pretty much in a way thrown Vince McMahon under the bus, with what he's had to say, like acknowledging that he knows Vince is kind of the reason the stock has gone down, kind of basically in his own way acknowledging the concerns that everybody, on the board, of TKO Endeavor, if you will, have about Vince, all the internal worrying and stuff. Despite him saying all that, and despite him even saying that he's a firm believer that if you're assigned to do a certain task or job, that job should be the only thing you focus on. That is your number one priority, yours and yours alone. Which is why basically Triple H is not part of the board of directors right now. Because in Ari Emmanuel's mind, Triple H is the head of creative and only the head of creative, and he's the only guy in Ari Emmanuel's mind that should be running it and nobody else. And then if anybody else is there, like let's say his daughter, who's a assistant in creative, if you will, to some capacity, as well as someone like a Bruce Pritchard or whatever, that it's not Vince McMahon they report to or to get the final say, it's Triple H and Triple H alone. So despite the fact that Ari Emmanuel has come out and said all these things, people are still skeptical because of what happened late last year, early this year on the Raw after Mania, and pretty much in the months prior to the deal being finalized. Now I'll admit, they do have a point to kind of be skeptical. But the way I look at it, and I think I said this before in one of my videos where I basically acknowledge that we don't have to really worry that much, when this merger officially happens, because Ari Emmanuel seems like the kind of guy that will make sure Vince is stays in the position he's giving him, and that's the only position he has. Again, I can understand the skepticism, if you will, because I think, as I said in one of my videos, Vince, what he was doing by sticking his nose in creatively, like having to say here and there and all that and everything, even though it was more credited towards Triple H, you could tell it was Vince in certain areas, especially with certain talents not being around, certain storylines being held off and stuff all not concluded. And I think I said this. I think I said that basically it was Vince knowing that he may not have a creative say anymore, so he's getting it out of his system. He's trying to get it out of his system as much as he can. He's trying to get out any creative juices he still has. Maybe with the hope he'd stay in creative, when the merger became official. But as we've all seen and heard and read, that is not the case. It is not. Because Ari Emmanuel himself has come out and said that. We've heard it. And again, like I said, I know people have a right to be skeptical. I'm not saying you don't. But this is what I said today. This is what I typed up on Twitter. I put it on my Twitter. I tagged, just Alex, JD, Salamonster, OTR. I tagged basically JD from NY206 of Off the Script, just Alex of Alex's World, OTRS Central, Salamonster of Salamonster Sounds Off, Greg Morgan of Good Mic Work, Brian Zane of Wrestling with Regret, and so on, and Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful. And I even emailed it to those people as well. I put this, I tagged them on Twitter, sending it to them. It took me 3 sections, basically, because I'm not part of the premium deal where I can get like unlimited, if you will. I'm still on the free deal. But basically, it took me like three Twitter tweets, if you will, to put it out. But then I copied and pasted it, put it onto various wrestling groups on Facebook, emailed it to the people I just mentioned as well. And this is what I said. And I actually did, and this tweet here actually took me most of the day to do, from going to work this morning, sitting in the passenger seat in the car, to my various breaks and lunch. I was finally able to get this thing done. And this is what I said, and I quote. And let me get some Coca-Cola here for my Dave & Buster's cup or mug. Much better. But this is what I said, and I quote. This is what I said on Twitter, Facebook, email to the people I mentioned, and so on. This is what I said, and I quote. I told you all not to worry. Ari Emmanuel is a now guy. Keyword now guy. He sees what works and what doesn't. Basically what makes money and what doesn't. He also isn't that gullible. Okay, let me repeat that. Let me rephrase that. I'll reread that. Continuing on, and I quote. He also isn't that gullible. nor naive to know why Vince McMahon wanted to sell his company to him. Let me reread that. He also isn't that gullible nor naive to know why Vince McMahon wanted to sell his company to him. Continuing on. He also probably did his research on Vince's background and everything that he was alleged of the year before. Continuing. Quote, he probably also met with various members of Endeavor and stock investors to learn what he was getting into with Vince upon purchasing 51% of WWE from Vince. Also, quote, he probably knows Vince was trying to manipulate him into giving him back his power by pretending to be his friend with the sale. But Ari Emmanuel didn't fall for it, and Vince is probably realizing that he got duped. And that's pretty much what it says there. Pretty much what it says. If you could read that. Pretty much what it says right there. Yeah. Basically what I'm saying here is I'm reaffirming what I've talked about, and I'm also adding in things that people have talked about from what we've learned this past week with Ari Emmanuel kind of officially himself coming out and making that all pretty much official, or at least confirming it. You know, that basically he's not stupid. Ari knows that Vince isn't really his friend. I've talked about this. Ari knows it. He knows Vince is just buddying up to him, kissing up to him, trying to be like, hey, Ari, let's go play some golf. And, while we play some golf, I got some ideas for TKO we can do. Yeah. He's not stupid. He's not dumb. He knows what he's getting into. He knows Vince was trying to manipulate him. And he didn't fall for it. And now Vince realizing that any plan, if that is true to an extent, of him trying to, manipulate and make Ari Emmanuel gullible to what he wanted, Vince is now realizing that, I think as Solomon to put it, he got played. He's now realizing, as I said here, basically, he got duped. He got duped. Because again, if you're Ari Emmanuel, okay, you do not, invest into purchasing a company and merging it with you, especially a company that was family owned for so long, by the McMahons, but mostly by Vince McMahon Jr. You do not, incorporate that into your company without doing your research about the current and soon-to-be former owner of it. You don't. You don't do that unless you do a lot of research, on their background to see what you're getting into, as well as talk to other people. Hold on for a sec. Sorry about that, but like I said, he's not stupid. I mean, you don't purchase a company like that without, without doing research into what you're bringing, and what you're merging, buying into your company and bringing into your company. You don't do that. And you don't do it without talking to people at Endeavor or current stockholders, within WWE or current board members within the company to know what you're getting into. So in the end, Ari Emmanuel pretty much had an idea what Vince was up to, why he was doing this, and pretty much Vince is now realizing, oh, Ari Emmanuel is not as gullible as I thought. So let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video, and until next time, I'm out.